Hey, I'm so glad you're able to join this video. Today we're talking about this idea of using your money and not allowing it to get away from you before you had a chance to impact it. If you're like many of us, including myself, if I'm not very careful, the payday comes and you suddenly feel very wealthy and you go to take care of the things that you need to take care of. And by the end of the weekend, you look up and you realize that you've spent a huge portion of the money you just brought in. If you haven't done any planning, you may find that you're actually short on some key things, like maybe even your rent or your car payment, if you have a car payment. While this is something that's very common, it's also quite easy to solve if you're willing to put a little bit of thought and a little bit of planning into those paychecks. And here's what I'm suggesting you do. Before each month begins, you need to sit down with a calendar. I personally don't use like a flip calendar. I will print off a specific one from timeanddate.com every single month. Sit down with your spouse if you're married. If you're not married, maybe you'll have someone that you can just, at least bounce things off of. It'd be really nice if you have someone in your corner, because you don't want to do this all alone, or you end up justifying really bad decisions that you really should not be doing. You're going to write down everything you're planning to do that month. That includes the groceries you're going to buy, the rent you're going to pay. It includes the activities you're planning to do, and make sure that you really think about that. Things like cell phone. The things that you want to make sure you don't forget is that you're going to be doing some things that aren't just bills and surviving. You're going to have some fun. You're going to have some friends. Maybe you're going to be going on a date. Please make sure to remember to write those things down. And as you look at the calendar, I like the calendar format because it kind of makes you think, like, oh yeah, on the 25th we have this planned, or we're going to go hang out with those people, and then you can write down numbers in there. So now that you have a spending plan, the next thing you want to do is actually write in there each paycheck as well. Now you should be able to project the beginning balance and an ending balance if you do the math in between. Don't forget to include goals in here. Just because the numbers balance out doesn't mean that it was a good idea. And let me give you an example here. If you're currently working towards having an emergency fund, which I strongly recommend you do have an emergency fund, you're gonna want to make sure that you're putting some aside for that each and every month. So now that you have everything written out, you got to break this down. You got to think more to the week and to the day. So if you go in with this big grand idea of how you think it'll go, but then you don't pay any attention to it throughout the month, you'll get to the end and you will not have achieved what you were hoping. Next step here is to break out the things into a couple different categories. Break it out into bills, which are your necessities. It would be things like rent, utilities, car insurance. Put those in one pile, and then put anything that has a little bit of flexibility into another category. And I'm talking about like mentally, and writing them out. You want to write these out in separate lists. That way you can look at them and you know where you have some flexibility and you know what you have to do. So food, while it's not necessarily negotiable, the amount that's spent is negotiable. So I suggest you put that in the negotiable side. Things like car insurance are not negotiable, so those are over on this side. Now you certainly should be shopping the items in the non-negotiable side, but you don't have month-to-month flexibility on how much they cost. Now you've separated these out, you're going to be able to get control of it. So now when you're getting a paycheck, you actually are going to immediately assign it. It takes all the fun out of getting paid. Sorry to tell you that. But I don't know how else to do this in a way that is mature and responsible. It's just the fact of life. If you aren't planning for where your money is going to go, it's always going to run away from you. So payday is now a little bit more boring. What you do is you're going to go in there, you're going to look at how much of the paycheck that you just got needs to be assigned to the necessities and how much of it needs to be assigned to the flexible areas. And then you're going to just go ahead and you're going to split them out. I strongly recommend that you do have multiple bank accounts, one for your necessities and one for the flexible spending categories. This is going to help you a lot. Now you set those aside. And by the way, if you're self-employed, there was one step you had to do before you ever ever even got to those two categories, and that is setting aside money for taxes. If you aren't setting aside money for taxes in a self-employed situation, you're going to be in a lot of trouble. So check out some of my videos about self-employed, so you can check out some of those small business videos and how to get a business going, how to set up your accounts, because if you set those up right, your business will be a lot of fun. All right, now jumping back onto the personal. Most of us will get a paycheck and then it's spend, 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 spend. Where'd all the money go? Now, what I'm suggesting is you take it a little bit different. You get the paycheck, you split it out, and then you spend from there. So I really am hoping that I can help you build muscle around managing your money rather than always just wondering where it went for you. Hope that you found this very helpful. I'm always glad to help you. If you have any questions, never be afraid to ask me a question in the comments below.